This is The Raid, exposing the dark world of America's deportation machine. I'm your host, John Carlos Frey. For our weekly news update, I typically take a look at the stories from across the country and select the ones that are relevant to what we see on the news and social media, especially the stories that seem to get buried by the onslaught of chaos that we're all experiencing. As many of you know, Donald Trump visited the briefing room and led the press conference on Tuesday, January 20th, to commemorate his first year in office. For nearly 2 hours, there was a list of exaggerations and lies about his record. I guess we've all become inured to the blatant disregard for the facts. And it's clear to me, this isn't really lying by the President of the United States, but propaganda, or if you'd like, lies with a purpose. As a reporter, I've seen our government spin the truth to suit their agenda for decades. What we're witnessing today is not much different, except that it's escalating in its level of danger, and the agenda of rhetoric of an authoritarian takeover is evident. The part that's difficult for me to digest is that legacy media, or mainstream press, follow Trump's lead wherever he takes them. What I found fascinating during that press conference is that Trump was able to steer the national narrative away from the Epstein files. I know this podcast has nothing to do with that explosive topic, but the reason I bring it up is that Donald Trump held court for nearly 2 hours with a room full of reporters, and not one of them asked about the Epstein files. The administration has defied a law passed by Congress requiring the Trump administration to deliver the Epstein files by a certain date that has come and gone. They are in direct violation of the law, and not one reporter bothered to ask him about it. Is the acquisition of Greenland or Venezuela a tactic by the Trump administration to keep reporters off his back? If it is, it seems to have worked, and the press is complicit. I'm bringing this up because it appears the media is so driven by the big headlines that they let the other stories and events we all need to hear slip by. I know that the killing of Renee Good in Minneapolis a few weeks ago is a major story, and it deserves the coverage and outrage that it's receiving. But there are more deaths at the hands of ICE and Border Patrol, and they continue to mount. But there's little to no reporting about those. I want to share that information with you today. ICE is required by law to report in-custody deaths or deaths of immigrants in ICE detention, so the data that I'm going to share with you comes from ICE itself. 2025 was one of the deadliest years for people in ICE custody, since ICE became a federal agency under the Department of Homeland Security in 2004. In 2004, 32 people died in ICE custody. In 2025, 32 people died in ICE custody. To put those numbers in context, 18 people died in immigrant detention facilities in the year 2000. Most of those deaths were due to COVID. In 2021, there were 5 deaths. In 2022, 3 deaths. As I've stated, in 2025, there were 32 deaths. Already in 2026, there have been 4 deaths in the span of just a few weeks. And at that pace, 2026 proves to be the deadliest for immigrants in detention so far. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin said the rate of deaths had remained in step with historic norms. I just read you the facts, so she's lying. I'd like to offer you the names of the individuals who have died in ICE custody so far this year. A 68-year-old Honduran man, Luis Beltran Yanez Cruz, who lived in the United States for 26 years, died in ICE custody in California on January 5th. His family says he reported worsening health issues after being incarcerated, including chest pains and shortness of breath. He was in custody for over a month before he died in an Indio, California hospital. His daughter is calling for an investigation. She and ICE disagree about whether he was provided adequate medical care. ICE issued a statement, as they usually do, upon his death, the headline reading, "Illegal alien in ICE custody passes away in California hospital." The press release goes on to describe a heart condition and this statement, ICE is committed to ensuring that all those in custody reside in safe, secure, and humane environments. Comprehensive medical care is provided from the moment individuals arrive and throughout the entirety of their stay. The details of Yanez Cruz's treatment while in custody were not available, but I've heard and read enough reports about health care in ICE custody to emphatically say that statement is a lie. Luis Gustavo Núñez Cáceres, 42, died in Houston on January 6th, also from heart-related issues, and had been in ICE custody for about a month. The ICE official statement reads, "A legal alien in ICE custody passed away at Houston Area Hospital." Paradi Law, 46, a Cambodian man, died on January 9th following severe drug withdrawal symptoms at an ICE facility in Philadelphia. His family says he was denied health care for severe fentanyl withdrawal despite repeated requests for treatment. Law came to the United States as a child refugee. The official statement from ICE reads, quote, "Career criminal illegal alien in ICE custody passes away." ICE makes it a point to list his criminal record, and he had one, in the same report about his death. A Cuban detainee, Geraldo Lunas Campos, 55, died on January 3rd in Camp East, Montana, a detention site opened by the Trump administration on the grounds of Fort Bliss in Texas. Upon his death, there was an initial statement from ICE that described Lunas Campos as becoming disruptive, so he needed to be placed in isolation. Officials later found him in distress, and emergency medical technicians pronounced him dead in his cell. A separate account from the medical examiner has indicated that his death will likely be classified as a homicide, which would differ greatly from the earlier ICE official statements. According to an eyewitness within the detention facility, Lunas Campos died after he was handcuffed, tackled by guards, and placed in a chokehold until he lost consciousness. The preliminary report from the medical examiner states the death was caused by asphyxia from chest and neck compression. ICE's official statement makes sure to mention his death and added that he was a convicted sex offender, which the family denies. The initial report from ICE about Lunas Campos' death did not mention an altercation with the detention facility personnel, but after being questioned by the Associated Press, the Department of Homeland Security's Tricia McLaughlin issued this statement. Campos violently resisted security staff and continued to take his own life. They're blaming his death on a suicide, and that in the altercation with staff trying to save him, Lunas Campos was successful in committing suicide, but this was never mentioned in the initial report. It appears our government continues to lie about in-custody deaths by ICE on the streets of Minneapolis, and most likely elsewhere. In my 20 years of reporting about deaths of migrants at the hands of U.S. Border Patrol and ICE, I have never once found the agencies involved to be forthright, upfront, and honest about whomever dies at their hands or while in custody. I have always known these agencies to protect their own at any cost. I am not cynical, skeptical, nor conspiratorial. I am experienced. I have been repeatedly lied to by ICE and Border Patrol officials. If someone dies in ICE custody, I've learned to believe the eyewitnesses and family accounts before I can trust the employees of the Department of Homeland Security. It's nothing but a corrupt cover-up system, and the media typically falls for it every time. Thank you for listening to The Raid, available wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about our guests and the subjects we cover, please visit our website at theraidpodcast.org.